And we continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. I'm Sean Meyers, now joined by the second-year head coach of the Hempfield Area Spartans, Mike Brown. His team off to an incredible start, 5-0 here in 2022, coming off of their biggest win of the year, maybe their biggest win in decades, as they defeat Penn-Trafford 28-17 last Friday. Mike, first off, congratulations. What was the feeling like for you and for the team after Friday?
Yeah, thank you. I think we were just proud of all the hard work that we've put in this off season last year and during the season. The kids really deserve it with how hard they've worked. I think the biggest thing now is, looking on to next week. So we got to enjoy it for a while and then, kind of moved on and, keep on with this season that we're having.
Going back a couple weeks, I remember thinking going into that Greater Latrobe game, you were 2-0, the Wildcats were 2-0, and I thought this is a big test. This will be your first real test. You passed that with flying colors. Then you go against a Shaler team that was riding high. Thought that would be a big test. Won that one easily. But we knew that this one was going to be different against Penn-Trafford, and it was. And your team had to overcome a deficit in the second half for the first time all year. What did that tell you about the resiliency and resolve of your group?
Yeah, we knew, especially all the way since last year, that these kids aren't going to quit. These kids are resilient, whether, some might not think so, but they've worked extremely hard, like we said. Anytime they come into this locker room, they're ready to work. They're ready to work in the weight room, on the field, even in the classroom. They are resilient in all three aspects. So, we're really proud of them. Anytime you're going to play, a Penn-Trafford team, it's going to be probably the most physical game all year. We knew that, but, the kids fought hard. They fought to the end, and we're just happy we came out, on top.
I was able to talk to you a few times before the season. I came out to the training camp, of course, and then I did a couple newspaper preview articles as well, talking to you. And obviously the focus was you had so many guys back. You did lose a D1 player in Daniel Sirk, but you had so many returning, and yet I don't think there was a lot of high expectations from outside of the program. So what have you seen that has maybe allowed this team to exceed what the expectations, at least from the outside, have been?
Yeah, I think we used that as kind of a chip on our shoulder, a little bit of motivation. We're never going to lie to the kids in this program. And we kind of told them that, not a lot of outsiders think much of Hempfield football. So they kind of used that as motivation, had a little bit of chip on their shoulder. But I think it's that core guys, those senior leaders that really bought into what we were trying to preach. And, we kind of went even further than we actually expected as a coaching staff. These kids, again, been resilient. They've been determined ever since, early December when we started back up. And, again, I keep saying it, but I'm really proud of them.
And I think it was pretty apparent just less than 2 quarters into the first game of the season that this was a different group, because you had that sort of bizarre game against Greensburg-Salem in which you were out to an incredible start. The second half got canceled. You had the lightning delays. But in that was probably about 22 minutes of gameplay, you showed how dominant this team could be on both sides. How important was that to get off to that start in that first rivalry game?
Yeah, I think that was huge. We talk about it, just as games starting off fast, but starting the season off fast, I think was even more important, where I think they kind of gained a little bit of momentum and actually believed in themselves. Like, okay, what the coaching staff is actually preaching is somewhat true. We do deserve this. So I think the momentum at the beginning of the season was huge, just for a confidence standpoint in them, being, kind of dormant for a lot of years. And, we can say that, we deserve to be winning, but actually going out and doing it, I think was really impressive. And I think it gave those kids the confidence that, okay, now we can compete with, whoever we're playing.
Certainly there was some talk that this school would benefit from dropping down from 6A to 5A, but really to this point, I'm not sure that really has made any difference, right? It seems like this team would be competitive regardless of who they were playing.
Yeah, it's hard to say just because you're not going to play those types of teams. 6A is a great conference, but our conference is, I think, just as good. It's tough to say. We're just focusing on, who we get to play, because we usually don't get to pick. But again, I would hope so. I think the kids would, come in, anybody that we play, they'd compete and, try to be on top.
And you will get a little glimpse into that when you go against Seneca Valley in a couple of weeks. But let's focus on the Penn-Trafford game. And even before the game started, because there was a buzz around the Hempfield community. The attendance was terrific. It felt like a special environment even before the kickoff. How did the players sort of approach it even before they got to the stadium that night?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, just keeping our head. Whether, we talked about whether there's 5,000 people there or 5 people there, you still got to play inside the lines. We did have some concern because, again, not a lot of our kids, probably besides Eli, played in big-time football games in their career or even this season. So we got a little bit of glimpse of it at Latrobe, but, again, that was an away game. The atmosphere on Friday night was special. I kind of took myself back a little bit coming out when the kids were running through the banners, seeing that many people there on both sides, Penn-Trafford and Hempfield. So it was a really special night, I think, for both communities to come together and watch good football. But, we were concerned for a little bit with our kids, but I think after the first snap and after the first series, they kind of got grounded and, just focused on the task at hand.
And so you got off to that lead, and then Penn-Trafford had a really good second quarter. They scored 17 unanswered. You mentioned Eli, formerly Jeanette, and he went to a state championship with the Jayhawks. He had a massive touchdown late in the second quarter to kind of get some momentum back. But your defense looked completely rejuvenated in the second half. So what changed on that side?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you play a Penn-Trafford team, you can't let your foot off the gas. And, they're always going to fight. I think the second half, we just kind of got into the locker room, kind of sat down as a staff. Coach Ritz did an awesome job, kind of changing some of our defensive scheme to what they were doing. They loved, they were running the ball pretty much on will against us. So we kind of, changed our scheme a little bit, kind of brought some more pressure. And I think that was a big changing point into the game where we can change some things out and kind of, get to the ball a little bit more, not just having 1 or 2 guys at the point of attack, because again, those 2 quarterbacks, they're special players, and it's going to get to a point where you're going to need more than just 1 guy or even 2 guys, to bring them down. So I think our defensive adjustments were really a huge key in the second half.
We talk about Coach Ritz. That's the D coordinator, Ray Ritz. His son, Ryan, had a big part in the offense. And the second half, you got 2 touchdowns on 4th down plays. They were, I would say, pretty bold calls. Talk me through those decisions that ultimately did pay dividends.
Yeah, we talk about it, way early in the week, about, if we're going to have 4 downs, what situations we're going to have 4 downs. With our type of offense, most of the time we're going to mostly have a 4 down, especially that type of game. We didn't know if we were maybe not going to get the ball back sometimes with how they were running, and, they were putting together 12, 14 play drives, eating a lot of the clock. So we kind of went with it. We didn't get one early in the second half, which I imagine there were some people in the stands wondering what the heck was going on, but we're gonna play to win. We're not gonna sit back. If we lose, it's going to be because, we gave it our all and we played to win the football game. The 2 calls he had on those 4th down were extremely well thought out, well scripted. The kids practiced them all week. They knew that it was coming at some point, and, they didn't perfect it, and they perfected it. And, I'm just happy that they got the 2 plays and they were successful for us.
And the second one, if I recall, it was sort of a play where it looked like Phillips was going to run it, and then he decided to throw it. I'm sure that was part of it. It reminded me to some extent, not quite the same as that PT trick play in the state championship. So was that sort of the design to kind of feign the run and then hope that you're able to get someone breaking free?
I don't know if it was that much. I think Jake put a little bit of a theoretical aspect to himself on that one. He really sold it, which kind of gave me a heart attack for a little bit. But no, Coach Ritz, we've had those plays in for probably even since last year. The kids knew it in the scouting report that they were coming at some point. So I would say it was on Coach Ritz.
Okay, so you get that big win. Best start in 50 some years for Hempfield area. You have now a conference win as well, and that's so important with how difficult it is to get into the postseason this year. But you would figure that could potentially leave the team susceptible for a letdown, and you can't afford that this week because it is a stiff test again against Gateway. How do you handle that and make sure that that does not happen on Friday?
I think the biggest thing is we communicate it to our kids. We talk about it. We highlight it all week that, we can't have a type of letdown. We look at not even past teams in Hempfield, but past teams all in football that have done it, give them examples, and, kind of lead them. So make sure that we don't have a letdown. But again, I think with senior leaders on this team and having the success we've had and not really ever doing that at Hempfield, I think it's hard to have a letdown because, again, they get a taste of victory and how good success actually feels. And I think if we just, keep our head down, just focus on our opponent, but also focus mostly on what we do, I think, the letdown will kind of move its way out and we'll stay grounded and, compete to try to get another victory.
Talking to Mike Brown, head coach of Hempfield area. Well, we mentioned your team didn't get a lot of hype heading into this season. Penn-Trafford certainly did, but I think the team that probably had the highest expectations, at least from the media, was Gateway. And so they're struggling a little bit, but they still found a way to win a close game last week. They dropped a game against Franklin Regional a couple of weeks ago. But one thing they have is a terrific quarterback in Brad Birch. I'm sure there's a lot of familiarity because you have some guys like Eli that played with him. What's sort of the scouting report to try to stop him or at least slow him down? And how vocal is Eli going to be throughout this week in preparation?
Yeah. So I don't think you're ever going to actually stop him. Like you said, slowing him down is going to be our key. I know Eli's extremely close with him, but again, that's what kind of makes high school football and our new schedule, so unique. You're playing against kids either you grew up with or played against all your lives. So it's just going to be another big game for us. We're going to try our best to, stop them. They have athletes everywhere. We're watching film. If there's a number 5, then there's a number 7, then there's a number 2. So they got weapons everywhere. And especially when you have a quarterback that can get them the ball and kind of manage the game like he does, it's scary for defenses. So, we're going to try to contain them as much as possible. We're going to understand that sometimes you can't just completely stop one. And, if a big play happens, we need to forget about it and, move on to the next play.
Lastly, obviously, you have a lot more work to do to get to where you want to, but so far 5-0 and that special victory against Penn-Trafford. How do you kind of look at it and try to live in the moment and enjoy this while also not losing focus that there's still a lot more to accomplish?
Yeah, it's hard because you want to sit down and get a little bit comfortable and kind of pat yourself on the back. But like you said, the goal is not completed yet. I'd be wrong to tell our kids, we got to forget about last week and move on. And then myself or my coaching staff sits there, like I said, pat ourselves on the back. So we're kind of, we're enjoying it, but I think we're enjoying it that they're meaningful games moving down late in the season, which hasn't happened here in a long time. I think that's one way that we're enjoying it is, enjoying the season that we're having and getting to play big time football when it gets cold out, pretty much is what I'm trying to get at. And so, we're not going to pat each other on the back till, we achieve our goal.
Well, Mike, congratulations once again on the incredible start to the season and keep it up the rest of the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's Mike Brown, head coach of Hempfield Area. We'll take a break and continue with more right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.